Great. It's doing that thing where I can't put it in. Gosh, I feel 82 years old doing this thing. Let me just get this set and then we'll. Let's see. Is that good? There we go. Good enough. I don't know what's going on with it. It didn't pick up that I had my thing unlocked, so whatever. We'll just have to do it and make it look super amateur, but that's okay. It's always that way, so I don't care. The good thing is it doesn't matter what this looks like because you're not tuning in to see my face or even the chair behind me. You're tuning in to talk about the Bulldogs. So that's what we're going to do tonight. It's going to be nonstop Mississippi State sports talk here on this Talkin Dawgs. And if you guys want to talk about whatever else, we can. But I apologize for the orientation thing of this. It just is what it is tonight. We're just going to have to deal with it. So glad you guys can join along tonight. God, this is bugging me, but I'll try to get over it. So Mississippi State, it's Bama week. You've lost back-to-back ball games, sitting here at 2-2 now, 0-2 in the SEC, and a lot of questions about this team and the future of this team and what is Zach Arnett going to be able to do at Mississippi State. And it's kind of frustrating in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it shouldn't be that big of a surprise to us. I think a lot of us thought that this was going to be a lot easier transition than it really was. And that was, quite frankly, a little naive of us to think that. At the end of the day, you have a first-year head coach playing in the toughest conference in the United States, and you're taking over under very difficult circumstances with the loss of Mike Leach. And let's be frank, Zach Arnett is learning on the job. Matt Brock is learning on the job as a defensive coordinator. We can talk all day about, should Mississippi State had gone after a different coach, had conducted a coaching search, whatever. Mississippi State, the powers that be at Mississippi State, this is how they felt like they should attack this. I don't think anybody at the time could argue with it, so it is what it is. But right now, what we're experiencing is a day-by-day learning process for Matt Brock, Zach Arnett, even Kevin Barbay. Kevin Barbay is in the SEC for the first time as an offensive coordinator. And, every day is going to be a challenge for these guys and a learning experience. So it's frustrating, but this is what it is right now for Mississippi State. You're sitting here at 2-2. You got to find a way to right the ship here. You've got to find a way to get better, and that's what they're trying to do. I thought against South Carolina, they got better. I don't think there's any question that they got better against South Carolina. There was a lot of things that we can talk about, and we will, that need to be fixed and that were very bad for Mississippi State, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There were a lot of things that were very good about what we saw offensively. I don't think there's any way that you can escape that game from South Carolina and say Mississippi State was worse as a team in that ball game than they were in the previous two ball games. I think we saw a step forward from the offense. It was just a bad day defensively, and there's some major problems there on the defensive side of the ball. So 37-30, South Carolina wins that ball game. Back-to-back weeks now, Mississippi State has had an opposing quarterback be named the SEC Player of the Week offensively. That's not good. Jaden Daniels did it last week, and Malik Neighbors. You had co-players of the week, 2 players of the week from the same game. That was rough. And then this week, Spencer Rattler, 18 of 20 in the ball game. He didn't throw his first incompletion, I think, till his 17th pass or something. Everything was on the money, and a lot of credit to him, too. I mean, you have to get the ball there. And it wasn't all just a bunch of dink and dunk passes from Spencer Rattler. He was making some great throws, and I don't think anybody can question the talent of that guy, and he's showing up this season. So I think that's it's one of those deals where State just got outplayed by Spencer Rattler. But a lot of these passes were wide open. It's 2 straight weeks that Mississippi State's just giving up these wide open passes. And really, if you go back to the Arizona game, it was kind of the same thing as well. So Just a lot of issues on the defensive side of the ball. But on the flip side, offensively, Mississippi State, I thought showed some fantastic things. Will Rogers, after back-to-back games of not doing a whole lot throwing the football, comes out with quite possibly his best game ever. He had 4 passes of 30 or more yards, which I don't know if he's ever done that at Mississippi State. Well over 450 yards passing, closing in on 500 yards. It was his career high in passing. Only 1 touchdown, though. There was 2 trips to the red zone where Mississippi State had a chance to score a touchdown, and they did not, and that was huge. He threw an interception inside the red zone. Then they had another possession where they could have scored a touchdown. They got called back, and then they ended up kicking a field goal. Those were big drives there. That's 10 points or 14 points off the board for Mississippi State on those drives. But I can't blame the offense for what they did. I think the offense was pretty good. They didn't run the football, but they didn't really need to because they were throwing the football so well. It wasn't really a must. It was almost like an old school air raid game for Mississippi State, but way more explosive plays. It played out a lot like the LSU game in 2020, although that one was a little more extreme, but it was very similar. Mississippi State was attacking down the field with some big pass plays, saw a lot of man coverage. Very similar in that instance. Didn't run the football as much on Saturday. So it's finding that right balance there, but I think we did see some really good things there for Mississippi State offensively, and especially from Will Rogers, who answered critics like myself and a lot of people even on this chat that said, it was time to give Mike Wright some snaps. And in that game, he came out and he didn't allow Mike Wright to get a lot of snaps. There was no reason for Mike Wright to come in the game a lot of times. He did come in and got a touchdown run, which I thought was a great play call from Kevin Barbay inside the 5-yard line. That's how Mike Wright should be utilized a lot and should get more snaps too. I think you could do a lot with Mike Wright. So I thought it was a well-called game by Kevin Barbay. The defensive side of the ball is a mess. I just don't know what this team is right now. So, this is a big week coming up against Alabama. You have to continue to show strides. It's not really about winning or losing to me this week for Mississippi State, because it's impossible to come into this game and say Mississippi State has to win this game against Alabama. Let's just be real with it. Mississippi State has not beaten Alabama since I was a freshman in college in 2007. That was, I believe, Nick Saban's first year at Alabama. Since then, he has absolutely owned Mississippi State. He's beaten them by an average of 29 points. State has scored single digits more often than not in that game. This game, you have to show that you can score points on Alabama. You have to be competitive in this game. If you're not competitive in this game, what is going to be the selling point to this fan base that says you should stay on board with this coaching staff? You should stay on board with Mississippi State. It's going to be tough to sell fans. It's already difficult to get people inside the stadium. It's going to be increasingly more difficult to continue to get people inside the stadium, on board with this staff, on board with this program, if you put out, another bad week of football. So it's a huge week for Mississippi State just to show progress. And if that progress turns into Mississippi State somehow getting a big win, then that's an added bonus. But to me, State just has to show that they can be competitive in this game against Alabama, because they have not been in about 15 years. So they got to do it. They have to show some kind of competitiveness in this matchup. All right, so with that, we will go to some questions, comments, whatever. You guys just throw it in there in the box. We'll talk about whatever, whether it be basketball, baseball, music, whatever. But probably going to have a lot of football talking here. What's up, Brian? What's up, John? Good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Landon T, do I feel encouraged after Saturday night's game? I do, about the offense. There was a lot to like about the offense. And I've been high on this Kevin Barbay offense from the start. Even with State struggling, I've been high on the scheme. I don't have a problem with the scheme. I think it's an offense that's got some adaptability. We saw that on Saturday. You come out and throw the ball 48 times or whatever it was after 2 straight weeks of running the football, how they did. I think that it shows that it's got some adaptability to it. It's got the potential to be kind of unpredictable, which is what I like. I like an offense that's not going to be one that you can stamp down exactly what it's going to do week in and week out. This is an offense that, with each passing week, can look different. One week they can come out and run the football heavily. One week they can come out and pass the ball. One week they can be pretty balanced. I like that about this offense. I like the play calling that they had on Saturday. I like the play designs that this offense has. It's about putting it all together. And I think what they finally did was pattern the offense a little more around the wide receivers the State has, which is one of the more talented groups that they've had, and Will Rogers, who is a guy that's thrown the ball more than any quarterback in SEC history. So you pattern it around those guys. You tell Will to air it out a little bit if those plays are there. And he played a lot looser than we've seen him play at Mississippi State. So I liked it. I thought it was a really good game plan by Mississippi State offensively, and they executed well. Stringer Film says the problem isn't Barbet, it's the offensive and defensive lines. It really kind of starts there. They were not good blocking in the game. They haven't been good for a while. They haven't really been good all season up front, and that's a major concern. And then defensively, they're not getting much push, and that's a big problem. That's affecting the back end of the defense because you're having to cover longer because a quarterback has longer in the pocket. You're not allowing your defensive secondary to flourish back there. You're putting a lot of pressure on those guys to cover down the field against some good receivers, and they haven't been able to do it. So I don't know what the answer is. I think that, it could be time to start implementing some four-man front, maybe a 4-2, something like that, just to take a little bit of pressure off of the back end of the defense. You're not getting anything from the same linebacker position right now. You're kind of struggling there. So it's really been from, the offensive line and defensive line has really affected everything else. And this is a league that, and most leagues too, it's like that, but this is a league where games are won and lost on the offensive and defensive lines. And for whatever reason, Mississippi State is just struggling there. So I don't know if it's personnel, if it's scheme, or what, but they are struggling. Need Dak and Chris Jones to buy some elite linemen. Yeah, that'd be nice to get them involved in the Bulldog initiative, I think. They could spare Chris Jones is making over $20 million this year. He could spare a couple million. That'll buy a really good player. All right. Jason Hanna, is Jan's going to get some of these top recruits? Remains to be seen. Looks like they're not going to get a couple of their top targets that they had missed out on. So they got to do it. I mean, he's got to do it at some point. He's going to have to land somebody. You send this Rumblings tweet. I totally forgot to send out the Rumblings tweet. So if you have any Rumblings questions, by the way, you can go ahead and push those out there if you want to. Fishman just watched the press conference for today, and it sounded like Arnett didn't like your question. Pretty sure he's been listening to Thunder and Lightning. Yeah, and we talked about that on TNL for tomorrow's show. You can hear it on Tuesday. I asked Zach Arnett about, how do you combat against the fact that Mississippi State, and I mentioned, Mike Leach, one of his messages after the game last year was that the team was scared of Alabama. They were scared of the jersey. They were intimidated by Alabama. And to me, that has been a factor for Mississippi State and Alabama since Dan Mullen was here. We saw that time and time again. Even the teams that were competitive down the stretch in those games they were competitive in, they folded. They kind of fell apart there. So, Mike Leach brought it up last year. Jet Johnson talked about it after the game. I thought it was a perfectly normal question, but he didn't like it. I don't think he really heard the question either, so I think that had something to do with it. But basically, he said, that's not going to be his message this week. He's not going to talk to them about battling against the logo or the helmet or whatever, which, I wouldn't expect them to talk about that or bring it up. I'm just thinking, what's your strategy of taking a team and a program that usually runs out of the tunnel and sees Alabama over there and it affects them emotionally or whatever, and turning that into, we don't worry about who's across the field. But I guess that's not going to be a part of the deal. So who knows? We'll see how they react on Saturday. TDM 74, very disappointed with how the defense is playing. Really hoping that these coaches figure it out to put our players in the best position to perform well. Yeah, they look out of sync on the defensive side of the ball. It's really strange why that's happening, because this is a unit that I was just vehemently for being top 5 in the league. I didn't think that I thought the secondary would get it together. I didn't think that was going to be a big issue. It obviously is. I didn't think the defensive line was going to struggle. I thought that they were going to be able to really plug the runs, get in the backfield. They haven't been able to do all that. So it's a major issue right now. This defense is really struggling. And you got so many guys out there that have played a lot of SEC football. It's just not working right now for whatever reason. Stringer Films, we're finally going to beat Bama in the season when it won't matter. Yeah. Well, it almost happened in 17, and I think they'd already lost a game or two in SEC play then too. So yeah, it's going to happen like that. That's just the Mississippi State way. You finally beat Alabama, and it's not for the SEC West or anything like that. It's just kind of just another game. I wanted to see what the situation was in that 17 season when State played them. I know they'd lost to Georgia. Yeah, they lost to Georgia and Auburn. So they were, they were 2-2 in SEC play when they played Bama. Lost 31-24. And they were up in that game 24-17, I think it was, in the fourth quarter. That was a tough one. Tough one to relive. Jason Hanna, do we have any defensive ends that can get after the quarterback? I think Deontay Anderson has done a solid job, but, you got to have other guys step up and do that as well. They just don't have it. They're struggling to get linebackers to do it. They just aren't getting in the backfield unless there's just a completely blown offensive line assignment, or if the quarterback's just hanging on to it too long. Now, they did have, I think they might have had, 2 or 3 sacks the other night, but Nathan Pickering's been the only guy that's gotten a lot of pressure up the middle this year, and he's had a solid year. This is already one of his best seasons, which doesn't surprise me. I talked about it when he came into the season, that if he's healthy, if he's out there, if he's a part of Mississippi State's team, which, in the past he's taken some time off, and he's had injuries. I think he dealt with COVID one year. When he's out there, the guy just makes plays. It's kind of crazy. It's almost every game he's out there, he's getting a tackle for loss. He's affecting a play some form or fashion. This year, he's got 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Let's see. So he's coming up on. He had 4 sacks in 2021. He's coming up on his career high. I imagine he'll get it. 2 sacks in 4 games already. And 20 tackles. Wow. Didn't realize he had made that many tackles. His career high is 27, so it's easily going to be his best year if he's here the whole time he's healthy, which you need him, because he's been one of the few guys on the line that's really made a difference. Landon T, is Steve Campbell doing analytics for Arnett for offensive and defensive situations? Yeah, he was asked about that today at the press conference, and I think it's just anything. You always got that, Jackie Sherrill used to say the chart said, go for it right here, or whatever. You always have the analytics where the chart says on fourth and 3 from the 35 or something, you're going for it, or you're kicking a field goal inside, the 45. The analytics say this. That's what he's looking at. So he's just kind of there to be a sounding board. Hey, what does it say do right here? I mean, because all coaches have a cheat sheet like that. Not everybody's out there, off the top of their head saying, we need to go for it right here. I mean, that does happen, but not all the time. Most of the time you have something that says this is what the chances are of you getting this first down right here, or of you making a field goal or whatever. So that's kind of what he's doing there. Nick Finney, anything new with recruiting? Not really. I mean, they're working hard. I know they got a 2025 5-star wide receiver, Caleb Cunningham, is coming up to campus this weekend. That's big to get him back. Great relationship with Chad Bumpus, Stonka Burnside, J.J. Harrell, and those guys, and they're working really hard to get him on board. That would be huge to have him as an early part of Mississippi State's signing class next year, because I think he's going to be one of the best players in the entire country. And to get him now twice, he's been a guy that has been really interested in seeing the rest of the country, which I do not blame him at all. If I was a 5-star recruit, everybody in the country wanted me, I would be going everywhere. And that's what he's done. I mean, this kid has taken advantage of this recruiting process and going out there and seeing all these different places. I think he's been at Georgia this year. He's been to Ole Miss, State, maybe Alabama. I'm not sure, but 5-star recruit, 11th best player in the country for next year's class, number 3 wide receiver. I've been watching Caleb Cunningham since he was in 8th grade. He lives right down the road from me. I see Choctaw County a lot. I'm actually going to see him this Friday night. He is the real deal. 6'3", closing in on 6'4", about 185 pounds, can leap over a single person. Great hands, great instincts, just a natural. He's a basketball player playing football, and he's just starting. The sky's the limit for this kid. He could be one of the greats at Mississippi State if they're able to land him, and that's what Chad Bumpus is working for right now. Got offers from just about everybody in the country to get him on campus now twice in the first 4 home games or whatever it is. That's big. Mississippi State has to continue to do work there, and you need to continue to show offensively that your offense, can make big plays. These big plays to Tula Griffin, these big plays to Justin Robinson, that stuff's going to do nothing but sell players like Caleb Cunningham and even your recruits that you're continuing to have to sell in this offense. It's going to do nothing but tell these guys, look what you can do in this offense next year. So I think it's huge to have him on campus, and Mississippi State has to show him something this week. John Landry, do you think if Brock was more aggressive like Arnett was last year, would make the defense better? Maybe. I just don't know if these guys are able to get back there. If you're bringing blitzes from everywhere, then yeah, I mean it would probably create some big plays, but you're also going to give up some big plays. So it's kind of one of those double-edged swords on the defensive side of the ball. You can be really aggressive and get burned on a big play, or you can kind of sit back and let a team pick you apart. And that's one of the things that Zach Arnett was talking about on Monday is man versus zone. And if you're wanting to eliminate some of those big plays, maybe you can run a little more zone concepts, but then you have a guy like Spencer Rattler who's just picking you off up and down the field. So it's all about execution for these guys. They've got to execute better no matter what kind of defense they're in. And right now, I don't know if it's the players that they're just not good enough. It's hard to believe because these guys have proven it in this league, or if it's the coaching or the scheme or what. But right now, it's just whatever it is not working. And I don't know if it's Zach Arnett needs to take back over. Zach Arnett needs to tell Matt Brock to be more aggressive. He needs to help him out more. I don't know. Because I don't know what Zach Arnett is doing on the sidelines during the game. He could be giving advice during the play or even calling plays. I don't know. And I don't expect him to tell us that either. Random Yoda, at this point in the season, who has had their draft stock rising? Uh, maybe Tula Griffin a little bit. I don't know exactly what he is on the next level, but I think that there's no doubt he's going to help somebody in the return game. Somebody's going to take a chance on him just for that. Devin Hester made a living in the NFL as a return man. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he's a guy that lasts a long time in the league and special teams, but he can also be a good wide receiver for you. That could be a guy whose draft stock's going up. I think Buki Watson is having a good year. Nathan Pickering, his draft stock's probably improving. Chris Huey, do you think Barbay will continue to stay in the press box? As long as it's working, yes. I asked Zach Arnett about that at the press conference, why he decided to make that move. Barbay actually told him he wanted to move upstairs to see the field a little better, and I think that there's no question that he saw the field better. The play calling was more fluent. It looked like it really helped the offense altogether. And one of the things that Arnett mentioned is that it can disrupt kind of the feel that you have for the players and stuff like that. But if you look across the college football and even in the NFL, a lot of great offenses, they have a guy up in the booth because he can see the field a lot better. It's a lot easier to communicate what you're seeing up there. And you can always call downstairs and talk to the players and kind of bounce things off of them. So I think that's the way to go. It looks like Barbay was really in a nice rhythm being up there. So as long as it continues to work, I imagine they're going to stick with it. Kerry Wright, how far behind is Davis Wade Stadium and Mississippi State in the game day experience compared to the rest of the SEC? Every single person that went to South Carolina was very impressed. They're way behind. The experience is just not selling people. There's nothing there that's super exciting. One of the most exciting things at the game is the entrance. And when it gets time for the people to come on the field and play, it's just kind of, there's a lot of boring aspects of the atmosphere. So you have the cowbells, and that's kind of a natural thing. But outside of that, what Mississippi State does it's 20 years behind. You need these LED lights. People think that's silly. Well, look at some of the schools that utilize that and how cool of an experience that is. It's just about selling your university. People see that from other universities. People see that on national television. And while that stuff might seem silly and mundane and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme, it does. Looking nice, uniforms, helmets, whatever, logos, looking nice, and having a nice atmosphere, having a cool experience, all that stuff goes hand in hand with selling your university to other people that have never seen it before. And South Carolina is one of the most underrated atmospheres in the country because they invest in that. The fans are invested in their football team. The university is invested in having a great atmosphere. Mississippi State's got a lot of work to do there. There's a lot of things in the Mississippi State atmosphere area that have got to improve for them to be up to snuff with the rest of the SEC. Just having cowbells doesn't do it. There's a lot of things that have been being done at Mississippi State that were being done in the early 2010s, and they've got to catch up with everybody else. Stringer Films, so many Bulldogs at the top of the NFL's tax bracket. Yeah, there's a lot of money going around with the former Mississippi State players. Maybe one day they can get a little bit of that cash at Mississippi State. It'd go a long way. Law Dog of Mississippi, I think we have a slight offensive line that should be glad to play tight end. That would be glad to play tight end. I don't understand that. Stringer Films, linebacker needs to be a little more patient and stay out of the initial clump and blitz through windows. Yeah, they're just not, for whatever reason, it's just not clicking with the linebackers and defensive line right now. And they're still making a lot of tackles, but that's not the truth. That doesn't really tell the tale. We need two Pickerings. Yeah, you need some guys like that. I mean, that's a 4-star defensive lineman. A lot of teams around the country wanted him for a reason, and things are clicking for him. Talent is a great way to succeed. You have guys that are physically talented like that, you're going to see a lot of negative plays for other teams. And that's what, State had that when 2017 you had a 5-star talent in Jeffrey Simmons. You had Montez Sweat. You had Gary Green. Those guys are either 4-star linemen or linemen that a lot of teams wanted, like Montez Sweat. He went under the radar, so he wasn't rated properly, but teams were inquiring about him that we didn't know about because he just didn't care. He didn't want to go through that recruiting process, but people saw that talent. State needs more talent up front. And they're going to have to get some out of the transfer portal this year. Besides the Arizona game and that last 4th down Saturday, I've been pleased with the play calling. Yeah, it's okay. Didn't think it was great against LSU. The other day was good offensively, I thought. Stringer, do you think Rodgers can run for more than 8 yards without fumbling the football? That's been a little bit of a problem. He's had trouble when he takes off and runs. That was a good run the other day. That's what kind of sucked about that drive. I believe that was the drive that he got the first down, fumbled, and went back, and I think Antonio Harmon fell on top of it. And I think they ended up having to kick a field goal. Like, if you get that first down right there, you hold on to the football, you score a touchdown, and it's a different ball game. Kerry Wright, basketball practice started today. Yes, they did. I'm trying to get over there and see a women's practice. Paul is working on getting to the men's practice. So hopefully we'll be able to see them this week and have a report on that. Law Dog, I guess Arnett said he did signal in plays. He does signal in plays. I just don't know if he calls them or if he overrides them or whatever. I've seen him signaling them. I just don't know how much input he is giving in the play call. I have a hard time believing he's not involved in some form or fashion. It would be tough to believe that. Simeon Potts, we miss Tyrus Wheat. Yeah, huge missing piece there. He was a guy that could set the edge. They just don't have a guy like that. The Sam spot has been a struggle. Stringer, Jet Johnson will play on Sundays. I hope. I'd love to see Jet in the NFL. Hey, Sven. Outside of that secondary, we looked way better versus South Carolina. If we can fix that, we should be fine. Yeah, that's a big if. Law Dog, do we have a backup offensive lineman that can play tight end? I mean, just Malik Ellis right now looks like the only guy. At this point, you've just got to kind of move away from the whole tight end thing. I mean, you're just not getting anything out of the tight end right now. I'm good with Malik Ellis coming in on short yardage situations. You're running a power set or something. I think he would be really good, but you're not. Antonio Harmon as an unattached tight end, I think works fine. I think you can definitely utilize him, but you're really in a tough spot out there with the tight end right now. They just don't have the guy as far as a blocking tight end is concerned. Dwight Schrute. Hey, Dwight. Any chance we could possibly play with 4 down linemen at times? Yeah, that's one of the things I mentioned a while ago. I mean, I think you got to look into it just to see what you can do, because you're struggling right now with your 3-man fronts and your 3 linebackers. It's just you're not getting the 3-3-5. You got to have that linebacker or defensive end that sets the edge, and you don't have it. So you got a problem there. You're kind of hamstrung a little bit, and they've got to work around that. They got to get their best guys out there to make a play. Sven, think Barbay saw against LSU that running the ball 70% will not do the trick. If Will gets 25 to 30 throws, they can load the box, and if that happens, Woody can run the ball. Yeah, it's kind of a, it's one of those deals where you cannot come out there and just tell a team we're going to run all over you unless you're blocking the way that Mississippi State has in the past with the zone read and things like that, and you have a quarterback that can run the zone read. I'm thinking you can run stretch plays and dives and things like that with your running back if you don't have a quarterback that's a threat. I don't think you can do that 40 times in the SEC. Zone read's a little bit different because the defense is having to account for two different people, and everybody crashes in on the running back. Quarterback pulls it, and he has a nice lane to run. And especially when you stack the box, quarterback pulls it and gets on the outside. He's got a good lane to run. I just don't think you can do that with Will Rogers. So you're going to have to throw the ball a little bit with Will Rogers. And I think what they did, when he sees man coverage, now they got to take shots. They're there. Those players are there. They've been there. They just haven't been taking those shots. Against South Carolina, Will Rogers said, screw it, and started taking the shots. And we saw what happened. So now that we know he can do it, he can throw the ball 40-plus yards down the field, they need to do that more. And it should open up the run. They didn't try to run the ball as much on Saturday. But I think they could have at times, especially with Mike Wright, if they would have done it the right way, but just didn't really commit to running the ball as much. But that was fine. The pass was working just fine. There was nothing dire about what they did. Reggie Williams, Harmon needs more targets. He's a very talented player. Yeah, I like Antonio Harmon a lot. They could definitely utilize him. Bigger body guy, can go along well with Justin Robinson and play, as an extra receiver, really. I mean, you can utilize him as a receiver or a tight end. I was going to see what he's up to this year. Tula, by the way, 20 catches for 388 yards in 4 games. Kevin Barbay did not lie to him when he told him we're going to get the ball in your hands, because he's getting the ball. 20 catches in 4 games, and he's also carried it a few times as well. Seven rushes. So 27 touches on offense in 4 games. That's pretty darn good. And also has an opportunity to run kicks back. They're finally utilizing him like they should. Harmon has 3 catches for 30 yards. They got to do more with him, I think. And Justin Robinson, I thought he had a good game the other day, 91 yards, I think, receiving. They need to get him more involved as well. Fishman, what defensive linemen are banged up? We don't know what's going on yet with DeMonte Russell. He came out of the game, I think. I forget exactly what his injury was, but Arnett said he was banged up the other day. So we'll see if he comes out. And then Travion Williams, that's a big missing piece as a backup defensive lineman. He came out against LSU, did not travel, I don't think, to South Carolina. He didn't play. We'll see what happens on Saturday if those guys are back. They need them back. And then Calvin Dinkins, he went out against Arizona, I think. And no, he went out in the middle of the week preparing for LSU, I think it was. So that's a big loss. That's depth in the middle that they don't have. They need to get those bodies back because they're already struggling on the defensive line. Dwight, any chance we see more Mike Wright Saturday night? We'll see. I think they're just taking whatever the defense gives them. I mean, right now it just doesn't look like they have a lot of huge plans for him. He's coming in certain situations. Sorry about that. And running the football. I mean, he's only thrown it one time. He threw that touchdown. They're not even trying to throw the football with him. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I think they just don't want to take the offense away from Will. Tom T, why does Arnett give you such a hard time? He seems to target you. I don't know. I mean, it's not just me. He does it to other guys too. But yeah, I mean, sometimes he can be a little, dismissive of questions and things like that. I don't know. That's just his personality. Steve C, how you doing, Steve? Who comes in after Rodgers and Wright are carried off this Saturday? Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it did, it would be Chris Parson, and you don't want to have to blow his red shirt this year. Random Yoda, can someone teach Will how to slide? Yeah, he needs to. If he's going to run the football a little more, he needs to learn how to do that, don't he? Chris Huey, do you think we'll see a trick play where Creed throws the ball this year? That's a good question. He's very capable of doing that, being a former quarterback. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Toss it to him, let him roll out to the right side or something and find somebody. I mean, he could do it. You got enough guys out there that are, kind of explosive players, Mike Wright and, also Creed Whittemore. You could roll them out. You could do a lot of things with them. This offense has a lot of those situations in it. We just haven't seen a lot of it yet. Dwight, any updates on Jaden Walley? Haven't heard. I don't know what's going on there. He's been dressed out the last 2 games, just hasn't played. And Arnett said last week that he was banged up. So I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the injury is or what. So, Fishman, the reason why Arnett's short with you is because he listens to Thunder and Lightning. Maybe so. I doubt it. He doesn't really pay attention to a whole lot. I know he's never on Twitter. So, I don't know. It does seem like me and Haydad are the two that he comes after. Maybe it is. Stringer, we don't have the offensive line to buy enough time for trick plays. All you need is a seam, man. You get Tula Griffin in a seam, one-on-one, you can find him pretty quick. Tom T, will Coach Arnett call the defensive plays going forward? I don't know. I wouldn't expect him to tell us if he is. Are there any news from the baseball scrimmages? How does the new pitcher look from Tulane? I don't think they have a pitcher from Tulane, do they? I don't know. I haven't been to a baseball scrimmage yet. We've had some coverage of it over on the site. You guys can go check that out. We've had recaps from every scrimmage. We'll have one, should have one today. I'm going to check real quick. Yeah, they got one up right now. Mike was over there today watching that scrimmage. And no stats in there right now. But yeah, it's a fall. It's a fall right now. They're kind of just working some guys out, trying to figure out who fits into what roles and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't really. I've read some of the stuff. I don't really know, what's going on right now. I haven't really put a lot of focus into it. I was going to look and see what Carson Ligon did. That might be who you're talking about, the transfer from Miami. Mike doesn't have any stats in here just yet, so we'll have to check back later. All right. Anybody else got some questions? Remember, get your questions in for the rumblings. If you'd like to do that over on Twitter. All right. Well, we'll shut it off there. All right, guys. I appreciate you. I'm sorry that we got the vertical picture that we got here. I'll try to make sure that's fixed next week. When I started this, it wouldn't flip. So that's my bad. We'll figure it out next week. But appreciate you guys checking in. don't forget, go check out the website 247 Sports. We got a deal going on right now. I think 2 months for $1. So this is a great time to come check that out. If you want to go see some good recruiting, team news, good conversation on the boards, even though things are kind of rough right now. We got some good stuff going on. So, all right, guys, thanks for checking in. We'll catch you down the road.